This conference will now be recorded.
All right.
The agenda. So, am I running this meeting or someone else?
Mayor Johnson, you're slated to call the meeting to order since we don't currently have a audit committee chair.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining me. Go ahead. Thank you all for joining me. It's February 24th, 2021 at 2 p.m. I'd like to thank you all for being here, and I apologize for my tardiness. I was in another meeting with a bunch of high school kids and teachers. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Who's taking minutes today? Oh, it's Gabe?
Yep, that's me.
Go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Mayor Alex Johnson II.
Here.
Councilors Betsy Johnson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
And Commissioner Brenneman.
Here.
All members present.
So next step is election of a chair.
I would nominate Councilor Johnson for chair.
What? Not Mayor Johnson.
I'm nominating Councilor Johnson for chair.
I was gonna say, which one?
Councilor.
Okay. All right.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Say nay. Motion passed. So
Okay.
Councilor Johnson, you're our chair.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and to the next article. It's the election of a vice chair. Do I have any nominations?
I nominate Commission Member Brenneman for vice chair.
I have a second.
Okay, great. So we have Jesse Brenneman as the nominee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Not in favor? Okay. Welcome aboard. Okay. Now we have the approval of the February 27th, 2020 minutes. Since none of you were here, I don't know if I can, I mean, I would approve them. I would move to approve them. I don't know if the chair can do that or not.
I'll move to approve. I read the minute.
Okay, great. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of February 27th, 2020. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, they are approved. Okay, schedule of business. Presentation of the 2019-2020 Auditors Report. And I think that's you, Brad. The screen is yours.
Well, thank you. I'm here with Jessica Luther Haynes from our office, who was the audit manager, who was responsible for most of the work on the city's audit last year. So I'll just take a few minutes to try and distill down this almost 200-page document by highlighting a few things. But kind of want to start out, set the stage that in conducting our audit, we had to apply 4 different sets of auditing standards, and each of these sets of auditing standards carries its own report with it. So as we go through, we'll highlight those because they're basically what you've hired us to do, is give those opinions. And the first of these auditing standards is generally accepted auditing standards, and this is where we actually are giving our opinion on the financial statements of the city. And if you were looking at this very thick document, it would be on page 25. And it is basically what we call an unmodified opinion, which in a nutshell says, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position and results of operations of the city for the year ended June 30, 2020. If you look at starting at page 41, you'll come to essentially the first of 3 sets of financial statements that are covered under our auditor's report. And these are the government-wide statements. And just let you know where the city ended up. The governmental activities of the city ended the year with $104 million in net position, which is a decrease of $4.2 million. And the business type activities ended the year with net position of $199 million, which is an increase of $3.9 million. So then beginning on page 44, the second set of financial statements are those related to the governmental funds. So we have presented here in the financial statements the major funds of the city. And, overall, the funds did not change much in fund balance between the 2 years in total. Both of them, both beginning of the year, end of the year, $43 million. The general fund finished the year at $3.1 million fund balance, which was a decrease of $600,000. And then the parks ended the year at $4.3 million, which is an increase of $844,000. Risk management ended the year with $1.4 million, which is a decrease of $4.2 million, related largely to its transfer out to other funds where those monies will be used. The streets fund ended the year with $11.5 million, and that's an increase of $900,000. And the capital projects ended the year with a slight deficit balance of $92,000. That related mainly to timing differences, and that was a decrease of $190,000. So overall, your governmental funds kind of, as a whole, break even where they were the year before. Beginning on page 54 are the proprietary funds, which made up of the water system, the sewer system, and the stormwater system. Water system ended the year with net position of $81.2 million, which is an increase of $1.3 million. The sewer fund ended the year with a net position of $123.1 million, which is, again, an increase of $3.3 million. And the stormwater ended the year just under $1 million at $985,000, which is an increase of $155,000. Then beginning on page 58 and going all the way through page 114 are the footnotes to those financial statements. And this provides additional detail that gives additional explanation of the amounts that appear on the actual financial statements. And I only want to draw your attention to one of them, which starts on page 80 is where we first see this. And this relates to the city's net pension liability. So the city ended the year with a net pension liability of $60.3 million between the governmental activities and business type activities. That's an increase of $11.9 million, which is a 25% increase in that one liability that basically you have very little control over. And I would like to point out that that particular number is measured at a specific point in time, and that's always 12 months prior. So it was actually measured effective June 30th, 2019. And it's measured by basically taking the present value of the benefits owed to your retirees less your share of the fair value of assets of PERS set aside for those employees. So I said that was measured at June 30, 19. So the PERS 2020 CAFR is out, and it shows again an increase in that net pension liability of 26%. So you're going to see your net pension liability go up again, probably about another 25 or so percent. This is going to become a big number very quickly on your financial statements. And if you want some historical perspective on that, beginning on page 116 is required supplementary information. And specifically on page 117 is a schedule of the contributions made as a percentage of payroll. And so in the current year, that represents 21%. So all your covered employees, every dollar you pay them, you're paying 21 cents into PERS for them. So that's becoming a very significant item. Then beginning on pages 121 and going through 153, you have combining statements and detailed budget to actual schedules for the various funds. I'm not going to spend any time on that. They're there for you to look at and read. And because the city prepares a comprehensive annual report, you have a statistical section that begins on page 155 that goes through 190. This gives some trend information and additional information, kind of taking a 10-year look at the city's activities. So finally, we get then to our second auditor's report, and this is our report under Oregon minimum standards. Those standards require us to look at two things. One, specific Oregon laws and regulations, and it talks briefly about internal controls. So as far as the Oregon laws and regulations were required to test, the only item that we found there was one over expenditure of an appropriation category. For a city your size, that's not too bad. If they just have, one thing that you didn't have get everything transferred, so you've avoided the over expenditure. So there's that one thing. And then, as I said, we briefly touch on internal controls. Internal controls are discussed more fully in our next auditor's report under government auditing standards. This talks about a little bit more about internal controls, and as part of every audit, we come in and we look at your internal controls. And we're doing that so that we can properly plan our audit. Where we see good, strong internal controls, that indicates less risk. Where there's less controls, that usually means more risk. So we're going to spend our time on those risky areas to ensure there are no misstatements. Now, if we find something that we believe needs to be brought to your attention, we'll be bringing that forth in a separate letter to you. And I'm happy to report we didn't have anything else that we were going to bring to you on internal controls. The second part of that report talks about compliance with laws, regulations, contracts, and so forth, those that could have an effect on the financial statements as a whole. And we did not find any instances of non-compliance there. So then the final report as your auditors is our report under the requirements of the uniform guidance. Those standards require us to look at specific federally funded programs and do specific tests to ensure that you complied with the requirements of that program and that you have internal controls over compliance to ensure you can remain in compliance. So we tested 3 programs, Community Development Block Grant, the Corona Relief Fund, and the Capitalization Grant for Clean Water State Revolving Funds. So we tested those. We did not find any instances of non-compliance, nor did we find any weaknesses in internal controls over compliance for those programs. And overall, you had expenditures of federal money of $7.5 million during the year. And I know the most difficult one of these programs we audited was the Corona Relief Fund. This one, it came out as a kind of a rush thing out of Congress this last year in response to the COVID. They didn't come out with a lot of guidance. A lot of guidance came out even after June 30th. So this was a challenging one. And I think JC got tired of all my questions on it to understand, what all the funds were used for, because they had such a broad range of things that they could be used for. So we spent a lot of time looking at that particular grant because it is brand new to both you as a city and the federal government. So it was really a very high risk program having met, to report that, at the end of the day, all of the costs were well documented. Sifting through the reports was I needed some help with, but at the end of the day, everything was really quite well documented how the city spent those funds. So that's basically the audit and the financial statements in a nutshell. I'm happy to try and answer any questions you have.
Is there any questions? I myself have one. For one thing, did we get, all I got was what I got in the mail. We didn't get the whole report. Yeah, that's what I have too. And so
Right.
when you're selling pages, I'm thinking, okay, I'll go along with it. Maybe everybody else got it and I didn't. So
No, we don't send you the full 200 pages.
no, that's good. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, Counselor Johnson, if I may,
Sure.
I sent out a link to our CAFR document to all the audit
Yes.
committee members. So
Yes.
that's what Brad is referencing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I saw that and I thought, okay, I didn't know if I missed something. So,
No,
any,
it's pretty expensive to start mailing those 200-page documents to everybody.
oh yeah, we don't need to kill that many trees. Thank you.
No. In fact, most of the city is it's all electronic.
Sure.
So we are trying to use less paper these days.
You bet. Bet. It sounds like it was a good report. I didn't see. Oh, Alex?
So our PERS, so this is June 2020, January 2021. So this is year ended June 30. So our projected PERS increase is 25%. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, the increase in the net pension liability.
Okay.
Now, and of course, the net pension liability translates directly into what the actuaries think you need to start funding into the program. So they're looking at, some other long-term investment types things. If you look at the increases over on page 117, that because we're still in the implementation, soon we'll get 10 years of history here. But right now, if you go back to 2014, your PERS rate was 14.16%. This last year, it was 21.15%. So over that time period, it's going up a substantial percentage each year. And, because they reset the contribution rates every 2 years, your contribution rate for the current fiscal year will probably still be right around that 21% overall. Because it's different depending upon whether you're fire and police or other employees, but it's going to, at the end of the day, probably right around that 21%. But come the next fiscal year in 21-22, I would not be a bit surprised to see those PERS rates increase once again. Because we have this growing net pension liability. And like I said, what's difficult with this, it is measured at a single point in time. So you think about at June 30, 2020, what were the financial markets doing at that point in time? The stock market was not doing well. And that's what PERS is mainly invested in terms of its investment is equities. And so we have the total pension liability doesn't probably change that much on a year-to-year basis. But when your fluctuations in your investments, go down, that net pension liability fluctuates also.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing what we know about, projected PERS benefit payouts, they keep saying we need more money to fund all those future pension payments under the defined benefit plan. Because see, that defined benefit plan, that goes basically for the lifetime of the retiree. And as people live longer, those payments are stretched out, quite a bit further, increasing the net present value of those.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Any
Okay,
other
that
questions?
looks,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's an expense, no doubt. Now, Brad, the only thing that I remember from last year were some not timely statements, balancing, and stuff like that. Everything there has caught up and doing okay, right?
That was corrected, yes.
Great.
And,
Great.
and the prior year, yes, the bank reconciliations weren't done really timely. And of course, the reason was you had the transition from Eden to Munis.
Yep.
Anytime you do that large of conversion, there's only so many hours in a day. And, they look at it like, well, we have other things we've got to do. We'll go back and catch that up later on. So, yeah, that's now all being kept current.
That's great. And Gina, I think we also had a lot of personnel changes too, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah. So
We did.
okay.
We're now currently staffed appropriately. I mean, we could always use more people, but we can do our bank recs and we can
Great.
keep up on those. And the Munis implementation is almost complete. JC will be somewhat involved in the UB conversion, but other than that, I think we're finally getting to a good place.
That's great. That's great. I know you can, like Brad said, there's only so many hours in the day and so many people to do it. So I understand that. So any more questions?
I found the report. It's 190 pages. That's what I have. I think it is.
It's like 193 pages long.
Yeah, I have it.
198 pages. Yeah,
Who's counting?
it's long.
Yeah, I found it. My head's hurting.
Okay, great. If thank you, Brad and Jesse, for that. We got two Jessies on here, so Brad, you're Jesse. And so if there's no other questions, let's go on to the.
I have one question.
Oh, sure.
So
Sure,
the
Mayor.
report that I found was 2018, 2019. Is there a 2019,
1920?
I don't have the link for the 2020, the 2019, 2020. Was that one
It
done?
should be out. It should be out on the website. I can shoot that to you really quickly.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it.
Actually, I'm not sure if I can get the individual document. If you go out to the finance webpage.
Oh, so I'm looking at the citizen advisory groups. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you go out to the, it should be on there. It'll be the top one in the CAFR list.
Okay, I'll find it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And if you have any questions regarding anything in the financial statements that you'd like of course, you should always turn to Gina and JC first. But if you have any questions, beyond that, we are happy to try and answer them for you.
Yeah, and no matter who comes on the committee or whatever, I remember the first time I came on, it was so overwhelming. It's like, okay, I'm just going to trust our staff and know that we're doing okay and we have a good auditor. So I feel comfortable with it. So thank you, Brad. Other than I'd rather be there in the room with you at the end of the table. That would be nice.
We're all very ready to be able to meet in person again.
Yeah.
That was the other challenge this year in conducting the audit, was some of it we had to do remotely. In fact, I know one of them, I was down there on a Monday, and basically the answer was, well, starting tomorrow, we're closed again.
Oh.
And so, we had that. But the good news is, with the technology that the city has invested in and the Munis, we are able to, we're able to be given access directly into it, and can do a lot of our audit procedures completely remotely. So that was a really nice thing, and that's really one of the benefits of Munis. We were able to do a lot of that. But even then, it's still so much nicer to just be there in person, walk down the hallway, talk directly to Gina or JC. It's just so much nicer, So I'm ready to be in person too.
I am too. Okay, moving on then, let's, and it says handout at meeting, and I've been busy this morning and I didn't see if there's a handout, but for the transit lodging tax audit, that'd be you, Gina, or you, JC?
It's me.
Okay,
I was trying to figure out how to include this in the meeting. I'm not that familiar with GoToMeetings. But I can share my screen.
okay,
Thank you for whoever's allowing me to do that.
all right.
Okay. You should be able to see my memo. Oops, no, you're looking at my agenda. Let me show you my memo instead.
I've got
How
that.
about that one? Okay.
There we go.
You can't see it?
Can you make it bigger, Gina?
Yes.
I can make it bigger.
My eyesight's pretty good, but not that good.
Okay. Can you see it okay? I can't see what I'm sharing, so.
You can,
It's good
if
for
you
me.
use your iPad, you can adjust it with your fingers anyway.
Oh, if
True.
you're on your laptop or your iPad, yes. If you're on your computer, just move your cursor to the right and it'll let you in and zoom in on your own screen.
Okay, can everybody see it okay? So basically we did an audit of 4 different hotels that we've listed: Albany Budget Inn, the Blue Ox RV Park, Albany Phoenix Inn, and the Value Inn. Everybody had the backup that they needed to that showed that what they submitted would be the correct amount. We only had one entity that didn't submit 1 month, which was their August payment. They had a new bookkeeper. There was some confusion. We talked to them. They submitted it that same day. So everybody is now up to date. We had one part of our code says that you need to have a certificate that allows you to collect these taxes posted in a visible place to customers. And we only had one hotel that didn't have that, but it had recently changed hands. So we've had several hotels actually change hands. So one of the things that we did this year is we just made the decision to go ahead and send out new certificates to all the hotels. And I think there's about 12 of them, roughly. But so now everybody should have updated ones that they can put up in their lobby so people can see them, and it should be good. On here it says, this is about the 14th year that we've done this. However, there is some talk about going to the state of Oregon for collections. One of the reasons we would do that is because they already have agreements in place with such online companies as Airbnb. And we could kind of piggyback onto that. We would need to change our ordinances to match what the state has and make sure that their collection policies match our collection policies and all of that, so that the state's not having to deal with however many different entities, municipalities, counties, districts who are collecting these transient lodging taxes. So if we were to do that, it would take some time, but potentially it could be within the next year. If we get to that point, we would no longer be doing these audits because we would not be the ones who are receiving the submissions. Seth is kind of driving that. I think he's hoping to get more money in for, the TLT program. And it would be an easier way of doing that than trying to go out and reach agreements of our own. We had already approached Airbnb, and they came back with their attorneys contacted us and said that our ordinances didn't meet the specifications that they would need in order to pay us. Sean weighed in, and so if we can go to the state, it might just be an easier way of going.
Mayor?
Is that gonna cost us any money for the state managing that now?
There would be a fee that we would have to pay for each reporting company. So it would be, trying to remember what they said. I have it in my notes. It was not very expensive. I think for everybody, it would be about $3,500 a year that the state would collect from us. And they would just take it out of whatever the hotels had submitted.
Okay.
Okay. And Gina, I remember from last year, this was brought up, and I said at that time, we lose control of who pays and who does it that way. At least this way, the way it's done now, if they can be called or approached or whatever, would we have access to who's paying, who's late, who's not?
Well, the state would report that to us. So it would be very similar to how they do marijuana taxes. So every quarter I get a report that says who's not paying their marijuana taxes. It's confidential. I can't share that information with anybody, but it is provided to us so that we know. It would be very similar to that.
Yeah, that's another thing that I've always thought was just not right, is how non-transparent that is when it should be public record. Alex?
So I know we mentioned Airbnb. There's a lot of those popping up, like VRBO and all those other ones. Does the state certificate cover all those as well?
Yes, the state would be responsible for collecting all
Airbnb
of
is
those.
just one.
Okay.
VRBO and all those as well. It'd be nice to see what that looks like, the ones that they can.
You're cutting out.
The Village Association. Well, I think that it'd be nice to know what entities are going to collect from on our behalf.
Okay. Any other questions?
So I have something to add to Gina and her 3,500.
Okay, sure.
If the state were to take over this program, they would most likely take over billing for the counties as well. And currently the city collects approximately $10,000 a month to administer their TLT collection. So that would be another number that the city would basically be out in revenues.
Oh. You said they would be out the revenues?
The city we would no longer be able to charge the county for that administrative cost that we charge them to take in their payments.
I see.
So not just the 3,500.
Yes, but then we wouldn't also be collecting it for the county, so it's okay. All right. Okay. Marilyn, Jesse, any questions? No?
No.
Okay, great. Well, Brad, Jesse, I really appreciate the report, and we'll report this to the council. And so everything is done, Brad. There's nothing else that's going to be coming back then? Everything's good?
Everything's good for this year.
Wow. Hey, there's something. It's 2020, 2021. Something's got to be good, right? All right. So is there any business from the committee? No? Okay.
I'd just like to say that I like to say that I appreciate being on the committee. This is an education for me. That's why I'm being quiet.
Yeah, I understand that. It is a lot to take in, but it's a lot of information too. And it's nice to know that our internal, what do they say? The internal controls and everything are very good. And that's very, very important to me, at least. So I appreciate that. And I want to thank Brad, you're Jesse, and Holly's on there, and Gina. Appreciate you, and all the committee members too. Thank you, and I guess we'll see you all tonight.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Meeting is adjourned. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Jesse.
Bye. All right. I'll leave the meeting. Okay.